It must have been around 2012, 13 when I got introduced to Rajiv ji's works. And it was through some videos, YouTube videos that my mom sent my way. So it was a time when I was transitioning in jobs. I was moving from India to Hong Kong. And it was also the time, that was the time when the discussion around elections had started, and 2013, 2014, the campaign was to start. And the mood itself in Bharat was very different from previous years. Uske pehle Anna Andolan and all that had happened. So it was a period then a lot of questions were being asked. What does it mean to be a Hindu? What does it mean to be a Bharatiya? And Rajiv ji, that is the time when I heard about Rajiv ji first from my mom. Then I have a friend living in Denmark. We discussed about him at that, and whatever he spoke was so appealing. It just made sense. It was not chauvinistic. It was not jingoistic. He was just going back to the source. He was talking sense. He was talking logic, and he was talking with a lot of data. It was so convincing. Also, his background, right? He's been into tech. He has been a usual corporate like all of us were at that point in time when I got introduced to his work. So it just made a lot of sense. And I'm like, okay, this makes sense. And at that time, I moved to Hong Kong. And in Hong Kong, I had a very multicultural team. And a lot of things which Rajiv ji used to talk in his videos about the Indianness. What is Indianness, right? And he speaks about being comfortable with chaos, not not being too anal about historicity, while very easily accepting that Acha, Sri Ram Krishna are our Bhagwans, even if they have been told to us as Acha, this is mythology, this is only mythology, right? This is no history. Even then, we have never had any struggle accepting them as Bhagwan. And so those thoughts were going on. And then I started observing the people in my team. So I say this all the time. While we say that stereotypes don't matter, stereotypes are not true, they actually are true. And I saw that in responses to issues and problems amongst my own colleagues. The Koreans would behave in a certain way, the Japanese would behave in a certain way, the Germans would behave in a certain way, and the Indians would behave in a certain way. And when I say Indians, I don't mean people born in India. I had people who were second generation Indians who were not even born in India. But somewhere we shared something without even sharing the country we were born in. And I was like, okay, what's going on? And at that time, Being Different is a book that came my way. And I think I can't stress enough the influence Being Different has had on me. And whenever anyone asks me today or even then about one book which everyone must read, every Hindu, every Bharatiya must read, I tell them Being Different. It has been a game changer. It has been that it has been that how do I say, that book which has managed to give answers to a lot of questions which young Indians and Hindus had. Something we know inherently, but unless told, we don't even recognize it and forget appreciating it. But then this book just helped me make sense of why my behavior was the way it was, why the mindset was the way it was. And the other thing which Being Different did was it really pushed me to go deeper into our Shastras, to push me to say, no, you need to pick up the text and need to understand what all this is. I have read Being Different multiple times, cover to cover, including all the notes. So that is one other thing I learned from Rajiv ji's works. He has such, I won't say dense, but he has such great notes at the end of it. So every chapter you have to read it with the notes. You don't skip them. So yeah, I think that is how I got introduced to Rajiv ji's work and have continued to remain influenced since then. Again, the importance of that came to me when I started living abroad and interacting a lot more with people of different cultures, right? And there I saw that wherever Indian diaspora was, I think some of these things we don't realize when we live within India. Wherever Indian diaspora is, we have never felt the need to say, oh, this has to happen my way, if all my religious laws need to apply, right? We have so easily accepted the law of the land while keeping our belief system into a family, into a community, without ever there being a struggle of identity or survival with the larger land that we accepted as our home. But that is not true for many other people from other cultures who are also diaspora, right? Like their specific diaspora. The other thing which really stood out to me was that I met a lot of very believing people of other cultures and other religions as well. But the one thing which was so different in our families versus those families is that in our family, it's so easy to find the father being a Hanuman Bhakta, the mother will be a Krishna Bhakta, some dadi will be some, some Shitala Mata Bhakta. The child, some child will be, oh no, Ram Bhakta. And then there will be another child who will be like, I don't trust anybody. I don't believe in anybody. All this is bakwas. I'm just an atheist. And we all still are so happy. It is so perfectly okay and so perfectly normal, so perfectly routine to see this in Indian families, right? Everybody around me is like that. But when you see the other, which then comes, strikes you as the other, you're like, oh, this is not possible. You will not have a Protestant, a Catholic, Jehovah's Witness in one family. It doesn't work like that. And even if there are, there is always a struggle to convert. So I was living in Hong Kong, and in some get together, I met this young woman. She was a local Hong Kongese who grew up in a Buddhist family. She went to Canada and she studied there, and there she was very influenced by some denomination of Christianity, and she had taken it up on herself. And when I met her, she had a lot of she was in a lot of pain mentally. So after a couple of hours, she opened up and she's like, I'm having so much struggle just interacting with my parents now. And I thought it was the usual Gen Z parents, that kind of an issue. But she said, no, no, that's not the case. My parents have been very supportive. They're very supportive of everything that I do. But I just don't get it. How do they not understand that it is so important to be Christian? I have been trying to convince them that they need to accept Christianity the way I have, but they just don't seem to get it. They're like, but why? We were born Buddhist. We've practiced Buddhism. We will stay Buddhist. Why do you want to? Why should we convert to Christianity? We don't believe in that. And so I asked her, but did they force you to stay Buddhist? Are they okay with you being Christian? And she's like, yeah, they are, but that's not enough. It is my responsibility. I need to save them. And I'm like, do you see the issue here? They are so comfortable with you believing in whatever you believe. They do not find it difficult to say, okay, my child believes in Christ and that's perfectly okay. But you are living with this guilt that you're not able to bring the right message to your parents, who, by the way, have seen a lot more than life in life, have achieved a lot more in life, and have stood by you in every situation. So why does it matter about what they believe, right? So these incidents happened, and I'm like, oh my God, it never is the case in our homes. There will not be a Hanuman Bhakta who will come and fight with a Krishna Bhakta in the family and say, no, 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 you are losing out. You will go to hell if you don't convert, right? So, as I was getting introduced to Rajiv ji's work and as I was reading Being Different, I don't know if it was serendipity, but I was seeing these things actually work out live. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Then you see it everywhere. So I think that's the other thing I want to say about being different. The other thing I also want to say is the book is not judgmental. It says being different. It doesn't say, oh, we are great, we are that, we are this. That is not the point. It is just I knowing and acknowledging the difference. And through that, the way people behave, respond, react, right? That is how it comes out. It is not something which is like, we are great, hamara sab acha hai. Aisa nahi hai. So that appeals even to who want to claim neutrality, so to say, right? Because none of us, at least I and some of my other friends who were influenced by the book eventually, at that point, hadn't found that one identity we wanted to assert. We grew up as the usual middle class Hindus who were Hindus but didn't really know what exactly it meant to be Hindus, right? So the book really appealed to even readers like that who were trying to find out what it meant to be a Hindu, but would have probably been taken aback if it was too much in your face. So, without being too much in your face, he just makes the point as it should be made. So, even the style is just fantastic. When I got to know about Rajivji's work and when I started studying more about being Hindu, about our Shastras and all of that, I had no intention of writing. So I never looked at it that way. I was just curious and I wanted to know. But I have to share this one other incident. So when I started reading Indian texts, the various texts, because I really wanted to explore what is Nyaya, what is Itihasa, all that, just trying to figure out what that is. At that time, I read another book of Rajiv ji, Indra's Net, and he had highlighted the issue of translations and how sometimes people misrepresent because of mistranslations of certain terms and all of that, and how it sets a very wrong precedence, or rather it sets a wrong idea about some of the concepts that we have. And he mentions about indologists, people who've been studying Sanskrit, people who've been studying Indian Sanskriti and still coming up with very contorted narratives. So I experienced it myself. So there was Sanskrit non-translatables, but Indra's Net I think was more impactful for me personally in that sense, because I picked up one of the translations of Nyaya Shastra, and शुरुआत में तो ठीक है, it was all fine, talking about different kinds of arguments, how to discuss various kinds of debates and stuff. And in one kind of an argument, the English translation said only people of the same caste are allowed to do this kind of argument or to enter into this kind of discussion. And I'm like, it's not making sense. Abhi tak you were talking about different kinds of argument. Why will be there a certain kind of debate where only people of the same caste are allowed? ऐसा तो वो sense नहीं बनता. If it is war, I can still understand, right? Because मारधाड़ हो रहा है, तो चलो, I still understand. But in an argument in a Shastra Artha, why would that be? So I said, chalo, let me read what is the shloka. So I go back to the shloka, and at that time, of course, I could read Devanagari, but I had not really practiced Sanskrit for a while. School mein tha. And in the shloka, I saw the word jati. Okay, and I'm like, I know what's going on. So then I tried to pick up a Hindi translation. I found one on archives.org, and I saw, and my hunch about the use of jati was actually right after I read the Hindi translation. See, knowing any Indian language, you would know that jati has multiple meanings. Jati is not just caste. Jati means species, right? Group of things. That is all jati. जैसे we say ना, apples and oranges cannot be compared because they are different. Fruit hai but different. So the point of that was make the same kind of comparisons. ऐसा कुछ तो उसमें था कि same जाति का comparison होना चाहिए. It should make sense. And इसमें उन्होंने caste, they made it caste. Okay. And I'm like, oh my God, if I only read English, I'm going to be doomed. I will come up with this kind of, because how do I know, right? I'm only reading the English. Ye to because it made me a little suspicious that why is this not making sense? And that was also because by then some reading, some understanding had happened of how these kind of concoctions happen. So then I realized that if I want to read our text, I can't just read English. Pehle to stick to a translation in any Indian language of an Indian author as far as possible. But the second, at least pick up basic Sanskrit. So it's at that time when I started then learning Sanskrit formally through Sanskrit Bharati. So not that I'm a Sanskrit expert, but I can get by. I will definitely read the Sanskrit of the text along with the translation. I just don't leave it. So that was the other thing. And that has eventually now, when the writing thing happened, it helped, right? Obviously, because a lot of things which people seem to talk about Mahabharata, Ramayana, of course, they've never read the text, it is all fiction. But because I had read the text and also the Sanskrit, the conviction and confidence I have in the Itihas and my work is obviously way more. So that's the other impact of Rajiv's work. I mean, very strong impact. I think a lot of what I'm doing is somewhere has been influenced greatly by Rajiv's work. A few years back, we felt so good when, say, a white man spoke very glowingly about India. They would write about Hinduism and everything. Oh, wow, right? And I remember my own friends, they had this book of uh, Wendy Doniger, Sheldon Pollock. So we didn't know, we know of his work only through Rajiv ji. And then knowing that how big he is in the Indian Indology circles and how much impact he has even on people in India was quite a revelation, right? But even people like Wendy Doniger, so my friends used to read her work and stuff, and I felt so good. I see, how nicely she understands us, Halana Dhikana. After all these years, I think there has been a shift in that. when you hear somebody from outside speaking about something related to us, we don't accept it for the just for the heck of accepting it, right? We're like, okay, is it making sense? Is the person, what is the intention? Are they really trying to understand us, or are they just imposing their biases on what they think of us, right? That shift has also happened, and that shift has been very good. It has been very good. And then you start seeing what kind of biases are there in the West when they talk about us. Of course, sometimes what happens is people dismiss a foreign author's work just because they're from outside. But theek hai, that's fine. But at least that much awareness has come amongst Indians about of not just accepting anything just because it's in the West. I think that's the other thing which has happened. He had this Rajiv Malhotra discussion group, and because after being different, after breaking India, that's the other book I had read after Indra's Net. I was trying to see who this person is, and I got to know. And once you find out his work, it's very easy to connect with him, because there were these online, I think there were Yahoo groups pehle, and then Gmail, Google Pay groups were bana, and lots of discussion would happen. And of course, I was not very vocal on those because I didn't know enough to give any input. But what he did was he would make requests for help sometimes on some small research work, small diagrams, whatever. Yeah. So I did help out in some of those small research work and stuff. And I remember there was Jayant Kalawarji who used to work very closely with him. And um, once we were doing some research on Sheldon Pollock. Of course, it was very small. I mean, it means nothing to the work that he had done, right? So I had sent him some notes after having read some books of Sheldon Pollock. So that was the other thing. They would say, read this book and send us what your thoughts are. What are the things which stand out to you? And that they would spread it out across different people. So that helped the work as well, right? A lot of people read it and the inputs came. So after I sent the inputs, Jan Kalavarji is like, this is good and this is good enough for us. But think of it from your perspective. Now, if you had to write, right now you're doing it as an input into our work. But if you had to write, what would you do? Think of it that way. So I did write. I wrote a blog on it and all that. Of course, it was very early. I was just trying to figure out and understand and all that. But that push also came from Jayanji, who was at that time with Infinity. So I think a lot of youngsters have just found the confidence to even go out and present their work, talk about it amongst public, because of the initiatives which Infinity Foundation has taken. So one thing which I learned from Rajivji's work and his talks and everything is that he never compromises on the quality or the data or the research, and that is important. We don't need to say things for the heck of it, for feeling good, right? Or just wanting to make a point with half-baked research. So anybody wanting to work in this field, I would tell them it is so important to establish a credibility, and credibility can only come, of course, with right intentions, but right intentions are not enough. The hard work has to happen, the research has to happen, the seeking has to happen. The seeking should not be about how great we are. The seeking should be for truth and accept everything. We don't have to deny issues, right? Even if there were issues, accept them. Also accept the good side and see how we work towards it. So I think that remaining grounded and focusing on the truth, that will really help all Hindus trying to research work in this field, I feel. Otherwise, it's very easy to shift on the other side. Yeah, and just say things for the heck of it. I don't think we need to become that. That doesn't help anybody. The other thing I want to say, and again, I like what Rajivji has done there. He had this whole volume of his, right, where he has a lot of work on Indic sciences, Indic technology and stuff. And he's done research and developed compendiums on what was that past science. But even while doing all that, he never denies the current science, the current breakthroughs in science, the current breakthrough in technology. I think that is also important. We can't just be comfortable. अरे हमारे ऋषि को पता था. अरे ऋषि को पता था, आपको पता था क्या? नहीं, right? And yes, we have to be concerned about the appropriation that is happening in the West. But just saying, oh, he's appropriating is not enough. You have to do what they are also doing, right? They actually are putting in the effort to study us, to delve into our text, to do the research, and then appropriating. They are dishonest, that's one thing. But that work they are doing, we cannot just stand and say, nay, nay, that is wrong, they shouldn't do, if we are not doing anything. So I think somewhere that also we need to start doing, trying to find out, doing research. I think that is important, not just opposing everything. So that is another thing I'd like to say. But otherwise, be confident and ask questions. There is no harm in asking questions. Just don't stop at asking questions. Move ahead, try to find the answers. And the answers are there. We just have to look at the right places. I will just repeat what I say in probably every talk, every interaction I have with youngsters. If nothing else, read Being Different. I think once they read Being Different, they will read other stuff as well. And most of them, if not all, will definitely be influenced to dig deeper, find out more about themselves, raise more. It will just raise more questions even in their heads. So if there is nothing else people can do and there's only one thing to do, I will say read Being Different. It is one of those books of the century, I would say. And all my wishes for Infinity Foundation. I hope the work continues and Rajiv ji's legacy continues to grow and spread far and wide.